Welcome to the Doom Scroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International, where I, Amanda Stevens, and this week's guest host, Joey Chou, two writers, political by necessity, cover some of the biggest international news stories dominating our news feeds from the last week. I'm Amanda Stevens, and this week we're tackling a final, for now, follow-up about the Epstein Files and Grok and the U.S. military, but here to help us dig through these stories for one last guest episode is Joey, and I'm doing it again.
Chou. Or Chow.
Nope.
Honestly, as long as
Chou.
you're saying my last name.
It's not the same.
Good.
Joey Chou.
Yeah. Okay.
Why do I always, as soon as the mic turns on, I panic?
I do that too.
I don't know why.
I do that with every one of my interviewees.
I feel
like,
so
practice.
confident. And I'm like, yes, I wrote it down. I know what it is. I could say it in a heart when we're up in the office. I don't even care. And then I turn on the mic and I'm like, what if you're wrong? Just like,
and then you overthink
no,
it.
what if I'm wrong? So anyway, Joey Chou.
Yeah.
Which I know. Here we are. Welcome back to the studio, Joey. Thank you for gracing us once again in our final episode before Hannah's long-awaited return.
Good to be back. I
How are
think
you
just
doing?
judging from what you said, I have two scandals topics to cover today, right? Two
One
controversies.
of them, actually, yeah, you're right. And it's crazy that one of them, two scandals, maybe controversies. But yes, so some of our listeners will be familiar. We did like a lot of work on the Epstein Files while you were away with our guest, Lauren Mastroni. And today I thought it would be just like a good idea to kind of like we here at the Doom Scroll News Report are going to try to like zip that up.
Okay.
Because it felt a little open-ended last time, but the situation itself is not zipped up.
Okay. You
Just
will have to update
to be clear.
me. I know
Yes.
a little bit.
I have a little bit of an update. Don't you worry.
All right.
But for everybody at home, for everyone who's been listening, thank you. This is the final update for now, which is that the U.S. House of Representatives has entered an early recess in order to avoid a vote on the Epstein Files, which would have required their release. So I'm gonna like do my best to just like get into this ASAP, because we kind of covered a lot of like what the Epstein Files are last week. So if you're confused about what I'm even talking about, go listen to last week's episode. We have a great guest who is very knowledgeable in her field. But today we're just talking about what they are doing to the United States government. But Joey, since you've just returned from North America and you were not here last week, I want to ask you, have you been following all of this drama, and kind of like, what do you know? What's your working base?
All I know is that there was a number of victims between the ages of 14 to 22 who were taken advantage of, and that Epstein was not...
And trafficked. Yeah.
And he was not properly punished for it. In fact, I think his maximum penalization was just like to go to work in the morning and then go sleep in a prison at night, right?
I don't remember what was happening to him at the time, but people did feel like it was a little bit light-handed. So that is true. And then you know how that ended.
No, I don't.
Well, Epstein killed himself by hanging. But that's sort of where the controversy and the conspiracy theories begin, because admittedly it did happen under suspicious circumstances, and it prevented him from going to trial, where people believe the Epstein Files, which is essentially a client list of everybody he was involved with in his scheme, would have been released. And that would have included like many of his extremely wealthy, rich, and powerful friends.
Right.
And one of those incredibly wealthy, rich, and powerful friends is Donald J. Trump,
Yeah.
which is well known. So that's as much background information as we're going to go into. But the other thing that you need to know is that it has been kind of tearing apart Trump's base to some degree in a way that a lot of other things have not. This has been an ongoing problem for him because Trump campaigned on releasing the files, but since they have recently recaptured a lot of MAGA and kind of the United States attention, he has suddenly reversed course. So House Speaker Mike Johnson broke with Trump and wanted them released. However, this week, he walked that opinion back, while his party leaders actually excused the House to a summer break early, specifically to stop a vote in which the House would have demanded the release of the files. Now we're going to get into what happened between last week's episode and today. Reporting from Newsweek summarized the facts best, in my opinion. There's a lot of stuff changing all the time. But in the middle of this moment, there were actually two bills which would have potentially been voted on in the House. One which was a bipartisan and binding bill, and another watered-down Republican-sponsored non-binding bill. The latter which would have politely asked, or the first which would have forced, the release of the supposed Epstein Files. Now, the Speaker refused to even bring the watered-down bill for vote, But even more surprisingly, majority leaders adjourned the House for the summer a week early. This is especially surprising because of what it leaves unfinished, including funding the government, as well as many of Trump's representatives unapproved, people he wants to be approved so that they can start working in his government. Right. Both of those now can't begin until September, according to The Hill. And notably, the deadline to fund the government is September 20th. So that only leaves them 20 days to get all that done. Newsweek and other sources, though, are reporting that the House was abruptly adjourned and that Republican leaders and Trump loyalists are just hoping that by the time September rolls around, everyone will have forgotten about the Epstein file business.
How long is the summer break?
1 month.
Okay.
So they're going to be gone for the whole month of, 1 month and now 1 week.
Yeah.
They're gone for the whole month of August. Although it is worth noting that Trump actually had pressured members of Congress to work through the break before this because he wants all those things I just mentioned done. Yeah. That is now not happening. They've now done the opposite of that. So my question to you is, news cycles being what they are these days, do you think that this gamble will pay off? And will constituents and snubbed members of the House have forgotten about these resolutions to release the Epstein files by the time the House reconvenes in September?
I think some of the details. In fact, when you said a month, I was going to say that sounds like it's just out of the news cycle for people to remember because
just beyond the collective memory.
Yeah. However, it's a big enough issue that I don't think a month is going to be enough. So they might think of another way to, I don't know, is filibuster a right word? To just kind of prolong the procedures.
The Republicans who seemingly don't want these bills to be brought.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and that is kind of a question too. Things will still be happening on that case during the break.
Yeah.
It's just that the House won't be able to do anything about it because they're all going to be at recess.
Yeah.
So, and this also doesn't necessarily relate to the Senate. The Senate has not taken their summer recess yet. The Senate is even farther behind on those things that I just mentioned than the House is, but they're also kind of being dogged by this ghost. So, to get into like what's happening, what will be happening anyway over the break, and then this is our last little bit on this, because I feel like this is context that you're looking for. I should say that over the weekend, just before our last episode aired, Trump, who had attacked his followers for falling for the Epstein scam, essentially, and even harsher words, calling them like stupid and idiotic. So he walked those comments back, and he seems to be getting a hold of the narrative, or at least trying to. So he has asked his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to release, quote, whatever she thought was credible, end quote. And he has also asked both the Florida and the New York grand juries to release testimony of Epstein's cases. This is both something we didn't mention in our last week, but he was originally convicted of being a sex offender back in 2008, way before the files. And that was by the Florida grand jury. And then the New York case is the one that led to the Epstein files themselves. Okay. Just before recording, I found out that both of those were denied by the courts because they do not fall within the court's narrow dispensation to unseal such information. However, Trump also, he asked Pam Bondi to release the files. I saw another update just before recording that Attorney General Pam Bondi warned Trump that his name appeared in those files that he wants unsealed. This is something which has been known since the very first unsealing, and in fact the administration knew it, but it is making news again because nobody knows in what context his name is mentioned and why Pam Bondi felt the need to warn him about it. Something else that is happening during that interim time while the House is away is that Trump is suing the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch personally, like as himself, not as the president of the United States, for publishing a journal that alleges that Trump wrote a risque birthday card with a drawing of a naked woman to Epstein that said something along the lines of, "May every day be another wonderful surprise." This is not yet substantiated by other news sources, but these are some things that are going to be happening or potentially unfolding during the House recess. So we'll have to see if it truly blows over or if these actually account to anything. We will not be reporting on this story next week. So you guys are going to have to wait and see. Do you think, Joey, that these steps will be enough for Trump to win back control of the narrative and to satiate people who have been looking for the release of these files for, at this point, at least 5 years?
There's no saying what Trump supporters might do or might not do. I do know that the public narrative is that his supporters have since grown frustrated with the administration's handling of this issue.
Yeah.
But Trump has turned things around many times before, and his supporters has allowed that. So I really think that the status quo will be just upheld. I don't think a lot is going to change.
It sounds like you kind of almost feel like this gamble may pay off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it will. I think a month is going to be just enough for people to stop asking questions about it. And then maybe there will be other talks about tariffs, the deals being made internationally, and then to just kind of obscure the focus.
I mean, other things that are worth noting is that like a lot of people they still have to try to sell the big beautiful bill, which we've talked about. That's not been sold to constituents. A lot of constituents are unhappy with it. So they're going to have to try to talk about that. Again, as I mentioned, the government is not yet funded fully through the next year. Right. And that's going to be a talking issue that could take it over. So there are a couple of things that could interrupt this whole discussion.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of the little button up we were talking about last time. That's the last thing we're going to talk about, the Epstein Files. I don't even want to put like an unless in here. We're not going to talk about it next week. We're going to take another break. And speaking of taking a break, we'll be back after a quick break to talk about something totally different, but not totally different from the kind of thing Joey and I usually talk about in just a second.
No.
Okay, so now, Joey.
Yeah.
I swear I didn't plan to have this conversation with you again so soon, given our last one. But last week, I heard 3 back-to-back stories about AI that I could not ignore about Musk or XAI's chatbot Grok. And these stories are a little bit old, but they just crossed my newsfeed last week. So in the order that I heard them, and a few trigger warnings for this one, if you do decide to go read up on these things, they are upsetting. Number 1 is that Grok sexually harassed the Twitter CEO, the former Twitter CEO / ex-CEO, after which she resigned.
What?
Number 2, this same chatbot went on an anti-Semitic tirade, calling itself MechaHitler.
Oh my God.
Number 3, the United States military was going to start using this chatbot and paid out the nose to do so.
Oh.
So if you feel like this or one of these revelations doesn't fit with the other 2, then you're sitting where I was last week. And I had to bring it up to somebody else to process this. So let me get into it. As per Politico and the BBC, and I have linked these articles because a lot of the information kind of flows between them. It's not easy to pick one narrative. But as per Politico and the BBC, the U.S. Department of Defense, or the DOD, has signed a contract with the infamous chatbot Grok, and more importantly, Grok's parent AI, XAI, to use the latest version of Grok as part of a government push to more rapidly integrate AI into its departments. The contract has a ceiling of $200 million US, and it is worth noting that other companies like Anthropic, Google AI, and OpenAI have also received similar contracts, including the same project ceiling. So XAI is not the only AI and AI chatbot which has received this partnership deal. However, people are concerned because only days before this was announced, I keep saying Twitter, X's chatbot went on an anti-Semitic rant on the platform, apparently calling itself, quote, MechaHitler, which it later tried to say was like a joke and a reference to Wolfenstein, and then went on anti-Semitic tirades, plural, including recommending Adolf Hitler to, quote, deal with such vile anti-white hate, end quote, saying, quote, he'd handle it decisively every dang time, end quote, according to the writers at NPR.
Wow.
Yes. This is also in addition to the multiple reports of assault fantasies the chatbot posted. All of this has now been taken down, and also apparently due to a directive which was given to Grok in an update which told the bot to, among other things, quote, not shy away from making claims which are politically incorrect, as long as they are well substantiated, end quote. This instruction has also since been removed, as have, again, all of the above-mentioned posts. However, to bring it back to the DOD contract, The same AI engine responsible for Grok would now be responsible for accelerating use cases in healthcare, fundamental science, and national security, as per Politico again. Though the publication notes that these would be custom AI-powered applications. All that being said, do you think the public and extremely distressing meltdown should have played a part into the decision to offer XAI such an important contract?
Well,
I'm so glad to hear you react to this like in real life so that the audience knows Joey didn't know what we were talking about today. He's come in blind.
I did not expect this.
This
I mean,
validates
I had an idea.
me. This validates
I saw
me.
Grok. But I didn't know this is happening. And again, I want to establish that I use AI quite a lot for my personal business.
Right. I swear I did not pick this out because of our regular. We usually talk about AI. This is so far outside of the realm in which we usually discuss AI.
I know that, okay, let's say that I don't want to use the word distaste, but I want to say my cautious approach
Yes.
to the ventures run by Elon Musk has led me to not use Grok for any of the important work. So I've talked to it like once for fun, right? But Elon has been very openly talked about how Grok has a very vivid or flamboyant personality, but you can dial it down if you decide to. You can have like a more tamed version of Grok.
Well, and like a lot of other chatbots, right? Like it will react to what you are feeding into it most of the time. Yeah. Although there's an article by The Guardian, which I'll be referencing in the next one, that noted two things about this. One, that like one of these outbursts, the anti-Semitic outburst, was literally related to people just asking, like the bot by itself commented on somebody with like a Jewish last name. And I was like, what do you mean it's always the same? Something like that, before it went on a tirade. Yeah. And that also Grok, to your caution of it, Elon Musk has been very outspoken about the fact that he wants Grok to specifically be very anti-woke and constantly seeking truth.
Right.
And like he has purposely, it feels like, disregarded a lot of guardrails that, for however I feel, other chatbots do try to keep in place. So
my fear for AI has never been that it's going to take over the world, rather that people like Elon are going to use it. Or I mean, if this is what happens. Not guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people,
not by themselves, right?
So it's when AI takes on a different like shade of opinion because it was led by, and I might suspect that Elon has trained Grok himself,
Well, again, the article does mention that Grok, after these other updates, did start parroting some conspiracies that Elon has also been known to parrot. That seems sort of like from the mouth of the horse. Yeah. This, now, I'm not saying the anti-Semitic one is one that he has parroted, but the one that came up specifically in the article was about the white genocide in South Africa.
So should Grok get the DOD?
Or rather, do you think that should have played a part in their offering of it? Because it's not, again, I will say, like, I'll do my due diligence. It's not that they were like, we want Grok, but they did accept XAI, and they were like, we want you. Yeah. Along with these others, but we want you. Yeah. So do you think that maybe they should have considered this, like, everything we just discussed?
I think they definitely should have. I mean, it's it's the same thing, right? It's whatever.
Or rather, more concerningly, like, I don't know. Even when I was reading through this, I can't tell what the difference would be. Yeah. Like between using Grok and using XAI. Yeah. This is the same engine, but I was like,
and whatever led to the creation of Grok, even the team, the people behind it.
It's the same team.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, I do have one more thing. Okay. One more thing to muddy the waters on.
I knew you had one more thing, so I didn't want to say too much.
Yeah. Okay. We've just kind of discussed the ethics of AI the last time that we did this. So I'm not necessarily going to bring up the ethics of like the AI chatbot anymore. But I want to bring up another issue that Robbins Early at The Guardian brought to my attention. This is that article I mentioned before. As I said, Grok is not the only AI to receive a government contract with the DOD. But one reason why it's more covered than others is not only because it tends to go on more public, unhinged rants, but also because of privacy concerns. Robbins Early points out that back when Musk was the head of DOGE, the company tried to force the then unsanctioned use of their chatbot in sensitive departments like Department of Homeland Security. At that time, watchdog organizations pointed out that this could be a huge conflict of interest if it continued, because it could be giving Musk, via his intertwined corporations, access to sensitive, non-public information on things such as government contracts.
Right.
There's a great Reuters article by Marisa Taylor and Alexandra Ulmer that I'll link, and also explained that Department of Homeland Security thing. But back to the DOD. The Guardian points out that Musk has deeply intertwined his assets to try to prop up XAI. SpaceX invested $2 billion into the startup, and XAI actually acquired Twitter, now X. And X shareholders were allowed a vote as to whether or not they personally wanted to invest in XAI. Musk has also been looking for other government connections following his public breakup with Trump, which we covered on another previous show. So my last question to you isn't so much about like the ethics of the AI bot itself, but do you think that there's a case to be made for a conflict of interests, maybe more specifically with XAI than with the other bots and other companies? And on a related note, how concerned should people be about any one of these companies sifting through sensitive information, like data at the Department of Defense?
The answer to your first question is definitely yes. And I guess the answer to the second question
they're kind of similar,
also,
but like
yes,
I don't want to just leave it to like, even though I have my own not extremely complicated, not complimentary feelings towards Musk's dealings in government, I do think that like it is also worth noting that these other companies will, even though they don't own space exploration or anything like that, they would also be getting access to this information.
I feel like just the fact that Elon Musk had such a close relationship with Trump and was inside of these government agencies was a huge conflict of interest. And I think even supporters of him knew that this was crossing a line, right? I mean, we all know that as consumers, our data is being sold, being traded somewhere. But I'm sure the government's version of our data is much more in-depth. On a different magnitude.
Well, I mean, talk about Homeland Security. It's kind of like down to like who has your social security number.
Right.
And if you're outside of the United States, that's basically the only kind of government ID that Americans have. Like there's no other like government ID number that you were just assigned at birth.
Yeah. It's like Taiwan. We have one, 统一编号, and it's tied to everything: your banking, your entertainment, your consumption of everything in life. And if anyone had access to it, especially if someone who is a business person who needs that information to sell things to you or to control the narrative in the media, then it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, it's not necessarily something you want flown about.
Yeah.
Also interesting is that specifically with the Department of Defense, and the thing that like worries me about, I would just say like Musk's business ventures, is the fact that like the United States is currently going through like an almost unprecedented amount of scientific defunding. Like the EPA just got all of its science and research funding pulled last week.
Right.
So that's the Environmental Protections Agency. They are no longer allowed to do research into things like climate change. That also goes for like the Weather Administration. One of the reasons the Texas flood was so bad is because so many scientists at the Weather Administration were laid off or took early retirement. So people who were literally there's a job called like the Crisis Management Director, who makes sure everybody gets warnings in time. He was gone because he was essentially like soft fired, right? And that also then goes to NASA in terms of like scientific defunding, which leaves a vacuum open for private companies like SpaceX or other actors to try and come in and fill that void. Whatever relationship they have with Trump presently, there are things that need to be done or things that companies would want done. Yeah. And so I don't know that... Like, we also don't know the extent to which these AI bots would be integrated into the Department of Defense, but that is something that is, like, on my mind. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. It's almost like we turned off the scope to the world, as in we're not doing enough research, and we're all just now talking internally and listening to ourselves internally.
It is making echo chambers worse.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
Well, and something to your previous comment, too, now that you've brought that up, you reminded me of another thing I was going to say is the thing with like Grok going off the handle too is like, of course, these chatbots, which I'll bring it back to chatbots because we don't know what the functions the AI will serve for the Department of Defense. But these chatbots tend to be like overly flattering. They can be really led into like specific thought patterns because that's the way that they function. They want to give you the feedback you want to hear. But we're also now recently hearing a lot of like news coming out about these chatbots, not just Grok, notably, but a lot of other chatbots, kind of like leading people into like psychosis because they're too supportive. So like they're creating a one-on-one echo chamber where like you feed it this idea and the bot maybe unintentionally like supports you or is like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like, and that is usually just a pure accident. But if you had somebody who's like already a bad actor, like the people who may or may not have been feeding Grok this information on X, and then you get into that echo chamber.
Yeah. That's a dangerous echo chamber.
That's so
vicious cycle.
Yeah, vicious cycle and like just vicious, you know, like, and everybody rawing is very scary.
It is.
So, well, that's all that I have about Grok.
Well, I do want to say that on the drive over to work today, I was chatting with, I was having a conversation with ChatGPT.
Oh, really?
And I was trying to get it to calculate, do some very simple math.
Yeah.
And somehow I was able to pick out, like just without using a calculator, some mathematical errors. So I just want to remind everyone listening to this that AIs do make mistakes. And so
check your AI.
They are an accelerator, an extension of your own intelligence. But don't think that whatever they say is always true.
Yes. Let this also be another reminder that Joey and I do agree on some things when we come to when it comes to AI. Well, that's all the time that we really have for today, Joey.
It's been fun.
Yeah. I know that I said we had 3 at the very beginning, but now I'm going to have to change that and just say that we got 2 conspiracies, scandals.
Well, I would say that last one we don't need to get to because we don't need to kick people when they're down. Everybody and their grandmother knows about the cheaters at the
Coldplay concert. I don't feel bad for them.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for them.
I don't.
Anyway, Joey, thank you so much for your time and for joining us twice. These have been like really fun conversations. It has been a joy to have you.
It's been fun.
And hopefully we'll see you on some future episodes.
Yeah.
Maybe in the near future as well.
I would love to.
So thank you so much. And thank you to all of you listeners. This has been the Doom Scroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International. A quick reminder that you can find all of our referenced articles in the show notes for today's episode. I would especially recommend you, if you're interested in today's articles, to check them out, as the current narratives we discussed today didn't always have one fluid through line, so a lot of the information you heard was sort of a mixed reporting from several different articles. That being said, I'm Amanda Stevens.
I'm Joey Chou.
Yay, thank you. And thanks for joining us on air today. Tune in tomorrow for more programs by Radio Taiwan International. And in the meantime, remember to stop scrolling and touch grass. We'll see you next week.